welcome to the BullCast podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me is Court Winston.
Good morning.
And Cameron Spann.
Good morning.
It is another morning one again.
Yes.
Early.
It's like our new trend.
You do it when you have time to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, because we are dedicated to bringing you a new episode every Thursday.
221 weeks in a row.
Every single Thursday at noon.
So over the years, we've really put a lot of plan in pre-planning what episodes we were going to do. And we had a calendar of, these are the different topics we're going to talk about. Some of them is like multi-part. So we scheduled that out where it's, simultaneously or kind of space them. And sometimes we just have real life experiences that then trigger podcast episodes. And
I'm triggered frequently. I am a victim of triggers.
So we just got back from a fundraising event. It was an award event. David Pickler was just honored with the Friend
of the School.
Friend of the Law School, and it was University of Memphis Law. Very, very cool event. And so they actually, of course, with any fundraising arm of an organization, they're going to take the opportunity if they've got all these people in the room, people are getting awards, let's tell them about this University of Memphis Law School, and let's see how they can get involved with helping with scholarships, helping to beautify the campus, things like that. So they had an auction. And a live auction particularly.
Yeah.
They had a kind of drawing, silent auction, stuff like that. But this episode is really talking about live auctions, whether you are a part of a live auction on a cruise ship, if it's a charity event, your kid's school event, whatever it is. This episode is really particularly talking about live auctions and kind of looking at both sides of it. But we've already done an episode about nonprofits and why they want to push those. So this is more on the consumer side. You're walking into this ballroom and those charities are looking at you to see who's going to be a part of this live auction.
Yeah, it's an intriguing experience. Live auctions are something that you go in and you're like, I'm not going to get caught up in the craziness, but you can very easily get caught up in the craziness.
When people start raising their paddles.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, live auctions are way more exciting than silent auctions. But
yeah.
I can rarely afford live auction items. Those are the big ones, the trips, the houses.
Yeah. I mean,
The tigers.
My wife and I, we try and schedule one family vacation per year, and we can budget a certain amount to take our 3 kids on a family vacation. And so we always have that sort of budget amount in mind. And I usually maybe can get one bid on something that would be a cool family vacation before it goes through the roof.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, I'm out.
So this episode's all about knowing when to say no. Like when you can possibly afford raising your paddle and when you should just put it down for the night.
Yeah.
So the list.
Yeah, I would say before we get into that, let's do the list.
So the list today is the most expensive things, most expensive things ever sold at auction. And the first one is the Oppenheimer Blue Diamond belonging to Philip Oppenheimer. Weighing in at approximately 14.62 carats, this was sold in 2016 for $57.6 million.
Put the paddle down.
I always wonder when people get these, like, where is it?
It's probably in a safe.
Do you have it in a safe? Do you have it displayed in your house, like a museum piece? Like, what's going on here?
I don't know. I can't even imagine having the disposable money that I could buy something like that.
Did you buy it from a museum? What's going on?
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, Man Pointing by Alberto Giacometti.
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to go with it. Sorry, Alberto, if I messed up your name.
Alberto.
Story goes, hey, I had it one shot right off the cuff and then it's gone. Story goes that it took only 9 hours in 1947 for this artist to create Le Homme à Dogit. I have no idea. Or man, so I'm so sorry. I do not speak other foreign languages very well. Or Man Pointing / Pointing Man, a life-size sculpture that depicts a thin man standing. Okay. It's sold at an auction held by Christie's, which anytime you hear the word Christie's with auction, it's money. So this was in 2015 for $141 million.
Good grief.
At the time, this was the most expensive artwork to sell at auctions. And again, okay, where is this man pointing? Is he in your garden? Is he in your foyer?
I think probably with
Foyer?
something like Man Pointing, I am betting money that someone bought it, but then put it on loan to a museum. A private person owns it, but then they've loaned it to a museum, and it's sitting somewhere in a museum, I bet.
Totally.
Oh, he looks like the guy from Signs.
To me, he looks like Thin Man.
He's thin. Well, but also like Signs. Do you remember the like aliens were very tall, thin, creepy things? That's what he looks like.
$141 million for that?
It looks like you could accidentally break him. He's so skinny.
It's in the collections of New York's Museum of Modern Art.
There it is.
Okay, there you go.
So far we've had a diamond, we've had a sculpture, and next is a boat. The Giga Yacht. The Giga Yacht, a 405-foot-long yacht with a movie theater and a helipad,
Ooh,
among other luxury amenities, stands out on the list because it was sold, are you ready for this? On eBay.
Oh my goodness.
The winning bid by Craig Tim, president of 4Yacht Inc., went for $168 million.
Okay, so this is something you can use though. Like I know that's ridiculous, 168 million, but like it's a yacht, you can use it.
I wouldn't.
Entertainment.
I wouldn't spend that much on eBay. That's a little sketch, right?
Yeah, eBay. It seems a little. So it doesn't say when this was bought because eBay back in the day used to be like bigger ticket things. Now it's become a lot more because I used to think like, oh, I can't get on eBay. That's going to be like real big. It's a bidding. It's an online auction. It's a big deal. Now it's like you can buy something. You don't have to even bid
I need a
anymore.
used iPhone or a pair of headphones. You can just go on there and buy it.
Yeah, so
upright.
it's changed their culture a lot. I bet. Well, that's a whole other episode.
Okay, next on the list is a 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO Berlinetta. The 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO Berlinetta sold for $48 million. This is the most money a car has ever sold for at auction. Ferrari made only 39 GTOs. It sports a V12 engine and a maximum speed of 240 kilometers per hour.
I believe people spending that much on cars. Cars are in their different breed of like what people will spend money on.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, let's say I had 60 million and you were like, "Hey, Court, you've got 60 million. You can buy a blue diamond or a Ferrari." I'm going to buy the Ferrari. That's just me. That's just how I feel about it.
I love that I got this.
Or maybe I'll use it as a down payment on the Giga Yacht.
Yeah, this next one's so you, Katie.
My girl. So, Portrait of Marilyn Monroe by Andy Warhol, created in 1964. The silkscreen image shows Monroe in vivid colors. I know you've seen this before. Blue eyeshadow, bright red lips. To date is the most expensive work sold by an American artist at auction. May 10, 2022, so not that long ago, famed artist Andy Warhol shot Sage Blue Marilyn, an iconic portrait of Marilyn Monroe, sold for $195 million at auction by Christie's. Of course, here we go with Christie's again. It is the elite place when it comes to big auctions. And I know we've seen in pop culture and stuff like that, the wealthy elite, when there's a big divorce and they have to sell their estate, they have to sell their items, then it's like getting involved in auctioneer like Christie's or things like that to help sell it.
I wonder what the commission is for employees of Christie's when they sell these massive
I'm sure it's
pieces.
Huge.
Yeah. All right, wrapping up the list is the most expensive item, and it makes sense to me. This would be Salvator Mundi by Leonardo da Vinci. This obscure painting by world-renowned genius and artist Leonardo da Vinci debuted in the National Gallery and was listed for auction at where? Christie's in 2017. The highest bidder was Mohammed bin Salman, Crown Prince and Prime Minister of Saudi Arabia. He scooped up the invaluable artwork for, drum roll please, $450 million.
Goodness.
Almost half a bill.
I feel like we should have done some of the oddest items, like the potato that showed Jesus, and random things like that.
The Cheeto that looked like Mother Mary.
Yeah, like a piece of hair from somebody, like ridiculous. Obviously, anytime there is a live auction, there is a prestigious organization like Christie's. Back in the day when it was eBay, there is a market to sell different things, and it's who you are pitching it to. I'm going to go on a tangent for 2 seconds. There's a story that has been going around on social media for years, and I randomly will see it every once in a while, and it's the dad who gives his daughter a very dusty, old-looking car.
Oh, yeah.
And talks about like understanding the value. And it's like, take it to the shop and see what they'll give you. And he said, it's dirty, it's old, it's not going to work. I'll give you $500. Then goes to another place and they're like, maybe, I'll give you a couple thousand. Then takes it to a car club group that understands its value. It's a, very rare car. And they're like, we'll give you $100,000 for it.
Yeah.
And talks about the value of what it is. So that's obviously a beautiful story of like
beautiful
story about understanding your value. But it's also telling you that what somebody looks like is junk if it's in the right people in front of the right room, or it's sold at a prestigious group, then it almost gives this air that it is so much more valuable than you may have thought if it was sold by Joe's auctioneer over here.
Yeah, art's one of those things. It's, what would you say? Its value is in the eye of the beholder or
Yes.
something. It's like that little Thin Man sculpture you showed me. That is not worth millions and millions, but to the right person.
And the ones where it looks like my kid could have drawn that in art class when they were
A lot of modern art. It's like a red square with a blue circle next to it.
and like, oh my gosh, it's amazing. And it's like,
Is it though?
I think I could do that. So understanding live auctions, it's a public event.
Obviously.
Not always. Live
Well,
auctions can be public or private.
Well, I mean, I guess a live auction could be like a lot of charitable events are ticketed only. So
Yes,
that's that's not public. And then of course, I guess you probably have some invitation only.
Invitation only. So let's just say a live.
And then in a movie like Taken, you had the dark side of auctions.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
On a lighter, let's use what we just went to this past weekend, for example. That was, like you said, an award show for David, but also a live auction. They're trying to raise money for the school.
Yep.
But that was a ticketed event. You had to purchase tables.
Yeah.
That's not Joe Schmo can walk right on in and go to the live auction. So that is private.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So most live auctions, I would say, are private or ticketed or invitation only. The only public auctions that I'm thinking of would be like
The fair.
or
not the fair, but like livestock auctions.
Livestock auctions. Would
What
be
about
that.
like a foreclosed house? That's public, right?
Well, yeah. Anytime, especially like for taxes or something like that, any tax foreclosure, they auction those off on the steps of the courthouse in most counties.
So most of them that we're talking about is going to be more of a private. You are attending as a guest or invitation only, things like that. It's where goods, properties, services are going to be sold to the highest bidder in real time.
Mm-hmm.
The process is conducted by an auctioneer who manages the bidding by calling out prices and encouraging participants to place higher bids.
Now let's talk about auctioneers.
Yes.
because you do have a whole
Wide range.
broad array. When everybody thinks of an auctioneer, personally, I think of two different types of people. You got the guys at the livestock auctions that do the yeah, and then you've got the stuffy, slightly balding guy with a British accent who stands in front of Christie's. And I'm sorry, I don't know who the auctioneer at Christie's is right now, so no offense to that guy. But like in movies, it's always like a 6 foot tall, real thin guy with balding head,
Maybe
and
white gloves.
He's like
Item
number 634.
634.
It's a lot slower paced and
This
formal.
stuffed animal polar bear owned by Cortland Winsett. It has been in his estate for 25 years and he has loved it. And the tag, untouched, says with love. Perfect condition. Who will give me $5 million and go?
$5 million.
I literally
Obviously,
am holding up a stuffed animal that's in our podcast studio. So I wish y'all could have visualized me selling this
we
polar
have
bear.
taken to doing visual bits for our non-visual podcast, and it's awesome. So auctioneers, not just those are the two that you picture, but then there's a broad array of different types of auctioneers. A lot of times, for a charitable event, they might get a local celebrity to do the auction.
Celebrity, news
Like a
anchor.
newscaster.
Yeah. And sometimes there's just like a really good person that's passionate about the organization because the key with that auctioneer is that they, number one, they understand the items. They understand the parameters with it. What are the selling points? They also understand everybody in the room and where they're sitting. And then the third component is their spotters. And so since I used to run events and stuff that had live auctions, your spotters are your best friends because you as the auctioneer are in a room, could be filled with 500 people. You need to have spotters that are alerting you there's somebody bidding over here. Now, I'm kind of the annoying spotter, but auctioneers love me because I'll have spotters and they'll just like kind of wave their light or like wave their hand up and I'm like, whoop, 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 and I'm like pointing and going the direction that it's going to get his attention, his or her attention, because there's great female auctioneers as well. But the auctioneer needs to know this item coming up. Okay, this polar bear. Obviously, we're selling this as a one of a kind, so I can't sell this twice. But say this beach condo that Court's really looking at and Cam's also bidding on it. If I know the donors, then live auctions are a show. It really is a production, and it's getting everybody excited about it because the difference of your bidding of, Item number 3, condo in Destin, 1 week stay. Who will give me $1,000? Versus like, we got this great condo. It's great. You got people bidding, people excited. And then all of a sudden you see that there's several people bidding. There's a bidding war. And if you're able to then as the auctioneer go to that donor and say, Miss such and such, like, would you be willing to sell it twice? I've got 2 bidders in the room. Would you be willing to sell it twice? And so then that is where we kind of segue into some things of Court may have this, card up that he just bid. He's wanting this condo, but then Cam came in with a higher bid. Court's like, okay, I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah.
And then now the auctioneers caught him off guard. And it's like, well, Cam just agreed to pay $5,000. You were at $4,500. I'll give it to you at $5,000 and we sell it twice. And then you're like,
no. That is when you say no. Unless you just have 5,000 to blow. I mean, that's one of the things. First of all, we're clearly sort of into a territory of more on the live auction fundraising charitable event side, because I don't think Christie's is going to have people running around saying, will you sell it twice? And clearly, like if you're at a cattle auction, you can't sell a steer more than once. So specifically within the fundraising area, though, boy, man, I mean, I've never been to like a live auction at Christie's where they're selling some giant diamond or whatever, but
a lot of those are phone bidders. And if you think about it, so it's very calm.
There are people who have a cap on what they're willing to spend on a particular item. They know what they want and they're there to buy it. And, if it goes above their cap, then they're like, oh, well, that's that. A lot of times at the live auctions for these charitable events, some people have probably looked at like the catalog of what's going to be up for auction and they know there's some stuff that they want to bid on. But then some people are just like, they're hanging out and having drinks and the live auction starts and they're like, oh, that's cool. And so they start bidding on it and they get excited and the crowd gets excited. And if you got a good auctioneer, the crowd gets even more excited. And then you got people offering to split a prize and so forth. And so you got guys that are like, most of the time, if I get up to something like $4,500 and somebody outbids me, I go, whew, and wipe my forehead and they say, thank goodness I didn't win that.
Because you're taking a risk. So the thing is that most of these auctions, and again, I agree, like we're not talking about Christie's because that is a totally different caliber of, to be able to be invited. You're talking about millions of dollars. You're not talking about the spending, $10,000 or less really, which is most of the charitable auctions.
Right.
Now there's some that go for a lot higher, but at least around our neck of the woods, like that's about the average. So auction item comes up. You've kind of in your mind thought about what you want to spend at this charity. Because I know a lot of people go in and say, I'm going to make a donation to this organization around, $1,000 or something like that. And so you've got an option of, okay, I can just give it as an outright donation at the end of the night, or I could get something for it. I knew I was going to spend this $1,000 anyways. So item comes up and most people have a bid card, have some kind of paddle or something that they can hold up. So the item comes up. You are then taking this risk of lifting your card up, and what if nobody else does?
Right.
What if you are stuck with this? So there's 2 parts of it. It's because it's the fun of the energy, because you do feel an energy when you throw your card up and they call your name out. And sometimes it's as fast as bidder number 112, 112, 112, $1,000, $1,000. And then you're like, oh, it's mine. I own it. I have it for a second. Like, it's mine. And then hopefully you quickly hear, over here, 224, you've got for 1,500. And you're like, okay, now do I go again? Do I stop? What do I do? And so it is a quick thought process. Right. You do not have time. Most of the time you don't have time. Number of times that I have seen, and we saw this at the auction this weekend, your spouse usually would be sitting next to you, like hitting you like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Stop. Or like, don't, or you'll see the moment of like, keep going again. Or husband and wife.
I want this.
Keep going.
One time
go.
at one of your auctions, there was a dad there with a daughter who was bidding on a ticket package for Taylor Swift concert. And this was way before Era's tour. This was, I think Reputation tour. But the dad was like bidding and somebody would outbid him and he'd be like, that's too rich. And the daughter would be like, Dad, I need those tickets.
That's exactly right. Live auctions are a game. Katie and Court, you kind of talked about these pieces. The point is to raise money for a charity, for an organization. How do you do that? How do you loosen up wallets? By all that fast talking, by that peer pressure, kind of get your head spinning so you can't think clearly. Yeah. And if it's a good auctioneer, mission accomplished.
Yeah, that auctioneer will come to your table. You'll have those spotters. Like, I know I've been a part of auctions where we've auctioned off cute little puppies. They brought the puppy over to the table.
Oh, yeah. That'll do me every time.
Different things. Like, they'll be trying to sell, but
also, if you get enough big egos in the room, then you'll end up having a group of people, male or female, probably male if I'm being honest, that are going to be basically competing for the big spender of the night. Who is the big
donor, the big I know what you're talking about, but it does turn into like that
benefactor.
It turns into that schoolyard brawl. It's like, well, I want to win. Like, I don't want to get beat out by that person.
Yeah, exactly.
You have seen the moments where like, I beat you for this. Okay. And like charities love it. Organizations love it because they're like, yeah, we got you to raise up. But then reality sinks and you're like, I just spent how much for what?
Yeah.
And I've personally seen it and I get from the charity side of it, but I was bidding on something and I was at an auction. My dad was there. He was sitting at the same table as me. I was bidding on it. My dad had his back turned and didn't see that I was also bidding on it. He started bidding against me. And I'm like, holy crap. And then when they got him in the game, they had another person purposely, I think, this is a theory, I think purposely getting him to keep bidding up because he knew that my dad was going to want to win this item. And so it's kind of like, you knocked me out of it. Yes, in theory, you probably got more by getting him involved in it. But I'm like, you then just like knocked me out and I could have had this. And then he probably would have bid on something else. So it is kind of a slippery slope when you start having those bidding against it. Obviously, for the organization purpose, they are trying to make as much money as possible. But you will catch yourself because it is such a quick, like when I would do events, live auction has got to be, 3 minutes max per item. 3 minutes to pitch the item, to sell it, and move on. And we're talking about multiple $1,000s that are a quick decision in that moment. Are you going to do it? Because you never know. Most of them will go 1,000, 1,500, we'll go up by 500 increments. But somebody could come in and be like, $10,000. And you're like, what?
Yeah. Clearly, like one of the things that you have to do if you're going into an auction situation like this, it is high energy, it is high pressure, it can be very exciting. Those people who are prone to, making that impulse buy, it is a place where the situation is fraught with danger for you. I mean, it's like you need to go into a situation like that, especially if you're a person who really loves the charity, you might want to support them anyway, and you're prone to making the occasional impulse purchase. You want to go in knowing exactly how much you love this charity and how much you want to support them. Because, like, for instance, you could be in a situation where no matter what, whether you win anything at an auction or not, you're going to donate $3,000 to this charity. Okay, well, that's a good starting point for you going into the auction, knowing that you're going to donate that $3,000 anyway. If there's an item that you can get for $3,000, then maybe you get that item and you were going to donate anyway.
Yeah. I know we're not talking about silent auctions, but like I've done that before at some charities. Like I've just started the bid on several things, thinking like everyone's going to outbid me. There's no way. And then I've gotten stuck with 5 or 6 items because nobody else outbid me after that. But I agree. Like you got to do your homework. You've got to figure out your budget. But also another thing is you've got to make sure you look at the catalog. Now, sometimes they have surprise items, but here's something you need to look at. Okay. Could you justify that one of these could be your family trip? Okay, so then in your mind, that changes the budget a little bit.
Right.
Because you're already budgeting for a trip. Or is it something like we used to auction off a barbecue party and DJ for $50? And so it's like, okay, what could I take this and utilize it for that I was already maybe going to do? So that changes the conversation. But here's the biggest pet peeve and the biggest thing to look at. Make sure you read the fine print because you do not want to bid on something thinking, oh, I'm going to get this Destin condo. It's going to be great. And it says cannot be used summer months. And you're like,
yeah,
okay. Or, we've auctioned off like sporting events, things like that. Or I've been to ones where they've done that. And you need to see like, what are the game options? Like, what is this? Like, when can it be used? And also as a live auction winner, because again, there's the terminology, winner. Oh, I'm a winner. I won. Like that just sends you to that. Yes, I did it. Well, congratulations. You just spent a bunch of money. So,
like we've seen one where it's like a Grizzly suite, but in the fine print, it's like it doesn't include the food or the beverage. Yeah. Well, that's going to be another couple $1,000s.
Yeah.
So did you really win?
Yeah. And so that's where again, on a charity, as an organization, all that stuff, it's a very cool thing. It's a great way to bring in money very quickly. But as a consumer going into those events, you just need to make sure you understand everything with it. Because please do not go back and yell at the organization after the fact because you did not do your homework. That has happened.
I can't imagine. I mean, I have been the winning bidder on a trip to Disney World for 4. Come to find out that the trip to Disney World for 4 was 4 one-day park passes for 4 people and a gift certificate to a local travel agency. And so it was like, okay, well.
So you still had to buy all the things.
And not only that, but like the gift certificate, I wasn't going to be able to get a full trip to Disney for 4 people out of the gift certificate amount. But I never considered like going back to the charity where I was the winning bidder and saying like, hey, this is garbage.
Well, you're kind. There's a lot of people that wouldn't. It's like, oh, well, our schedules got crazy, and so we couldn't go during that year. Well, I'm sorry, it expires.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes some people will work with you depending on, like, if you're not a about it.
Yeah. In terms of setting a budget, I know, for instance, there's one charity that we go to every year, my wife and I know she's going to donate a certain amount of money regardless. And every single year they have flowers for a year. You can bid on the flowers for a year.
I've seen you go crazy with that one.
I'm serious. Like every year I try and win this because it would be such a great marital help for me to have like automatically flowers sent to my wife once a month, every month for an entire year.
You're going to do something once a month.
I know the money's going out the door anyway to this particular charity, but every year I end up losing. And every year the executive director of the charity comes up and says, you could just buy her flowers. And I'm like, yeah, but this way.
But you like it the better way of like you're helping an organization and you're also doing that. Okay, we haven't talked about the other issue with live auctions. Alcohol.
Oh, I was just thinking that. I was wondering if we were going to get into that.
But let's be honest. At these events, then I don't know that I've ever been to like a Sunday afternoon live auction where there's no alcohol flowing.
Well, even Sunday afternoon, there better be some mimosa.
Yeah, but so that is a factor.
Sunday brunch.
That is a factor that may not change because we talk about set your budget, but this is very impulsive. This is very emotional driven. This is the energy in the room, especially if you got a good auctioneer. Throw into that if you've had a couple cocktails.
Mm-hmm.
Alcohol loosens the wallet. It's science.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's where, that paddle goes up and it's yours. And so there's definitely some buyer's remorse. And that's where you'll have a situation of how much did I spend? And that's when you got to go back and kind of readjust your budget. Because if you've done it, then it's like, okay, I just spent all of that in this month. What do I need to try and adjust?
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? Let reality sink in of how much you actually did spend. And hopefully it's on something that is actually useful.
Speaking of alcohol, this is the non-buying part, but Katie and I have been to an auction where they had an official auctioneer. He was sober doing his job, but there was a co-auctioneer who was just kind of part of the event, and he or she was blistered off of alcohol, and it was the messiest thing. She was speaking over him, and I don't think I've ever seen him back since.
Yeah, it was a really bad situation.
It's bad.
And it's also depending on like the auctioneers and stuff like that, the group. But yeah, you've got to have a quiet room to do auctions to try and figure it out. In fact, at that auction, they had to redo an item. Do you remember that?
It was really awkward.
It was real bad.
Just a rule of thumb, if you're running an event, you need to be sober.
Yeah.
Yeah. So during the auction, we've already said you got to have a budget going in. You got to stick to your budget while you're there. This next one is kind of interesting to me, and I'm not the auction veteran that you are, so tell me if you know what this means, but time your bids effectively. How do you time a bid effectively? I guess you don't want to be first.
It depends. Like, it's what do you want to be a part of? And so some people enjoy the letting it bid up and see where it's going to go and then swoop in.
Like if it starts getting to whatever their top is, then I could see you just sitting back quietly, not participating in the run up of the bid.
But when it gets to the going once, going twice, boom.
Yeah. I'll take it for this.
I had some doctors and stuff at some of our events that knew like we would have the kids do an item that was always very special. And he would almost kind of wait, see if like he could get some of the people in the room, because that is the thing, is also the more participation, the better. Even if you don't win, then just having more people involved, the more bids, because that's a study of it too, of did you sell an item, but it only had 2 bids, or did you sell an item and it had like 30 people involved? And so he would sometimes wait. He knew what he wanted to pay for it, but instead of it being like, we went from $500 to $10,000, he wanted it to kind of rally up a little bit.
Right.
And as far as timing it, it's obviously if you want to play the game, but you don't intend to win, don't wait until it's been going for a minute.
Yeah.
You need to go at the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. If you plan on just basically bidding maybe to see if you can get it or just because you want to be part of it and see, then you got to, obviously, if you're doing that, you got to be willing to actually win it if you win it. But then B, obviously, don't wait until it's reached a crescendo to start your bidding.
I mean, I've seen you, Court, sometimes like the most dramatic, like the most noticed one is the very first bidder. And you've been that several times when I've been at auctions with you.
Yeah.
And you'll like stand up and be like, I got it. And everyone's like, ah. And then the auctioneer's already paying attention to the next 2 or 3 people, but everyone else is still like, you started it, Court.
What happened to you? Why did you? They usually want to know why I don't stay in the bidding war. And I'm like, I bid what I could afford at the very beginning. That's
you
it.
You are a crucial part of an auction because you enjoy starting the bids off and get it going. You enjoy the fun versus my husband is more of a, here's the most random auction item ever. I'm going to try and bid it up and I'm going to try and get them to sell it multiple times. And he has just recently, over the past couple of years, gotten that bug. And
he's an agent of chaos.
Yeah, like he's bought like a round of drinks for the table and then gotten them to sell it 2 or 3 times. And like he's bought a pie at the one event you go to all the time. And it's like, how much did you pay for a pie made by the executive director? And
well, I mean, one of the things is, like, for instance, if I kick it off and nobody else bids against me, then clearly I'm ready and willing to take that item for whatever I bid for it. But then if another person bids against me, but then it doesn't start any more bids and they come back to me, then at that point I'm like, okay, no, I've got to keep this going for at least a little bit. But if it immediately starts off a war and like there are multiple people in that war, then I'll step back because I know it's going to end up being way higher than where I can go.
Yeah, because that happened to you at the event we were at last weekend where you were bidding and then the auctioneer had somebody else and he came back to you and you were like, no. Which is, again, hard if your emotions are in it, your ego's involved, you've had some drinks, then it's be like, well, I don't want to be beat out by a table. And it's, you can't even see who's across the way a lot of times. The other thing is gracefully exiting a bidding war when the prices exceed your
Which
limit.
court did that?
Yeah.
I was clenching the whole time and then you bowed out.
But sometimes you can't because you just get, enchanted with the magic of it all. And then it's like you instantly feel reality when you go to check out that night. Know when to bid and when to wait. There's a lot of science with that as well. But really, most of our listeners, I would assume, you're going more towards these charity ones that are not going to get too crazy. Now, I mean, I've seen ones in Nashville, Atlanta, like some of the bigger cities that have gone pretty crazy. But you've got to know ahead of time how much you're spending if you're going in together with a group of people, because that's the other thing with like trips. But you're also then taking the risk of, hey, I think I could get all my family to go in on this trip, but you're taking the bill of I'm putting it all down.
Yeah.
This is my favorite part. As we wrap up, after the auction, evaluate your purchases.
It's
like you're distraught. Oh no! You start sobering up a little bit.
What did I do?
What have I done?
Like, what is this? What was that thing?
You have some 10-foot high, 10-foot wide picture show up at your house the next day. What is
the hope is if you're at one of these nice auctions, you have a
Grizzly Wiggly.
I know what you're talking about. The hope is at these nice auctions, you have a discretionary budget. You can afford it. It's usually, people who have a little bit more money.
Yeah. Okay. Let me tell you about Grizzly Wiggly.
Okay.
So Grizzly Wiggly. So in Memphis, obviously, we have the Memphis Grizzlies, and then we have Piggly Wiggly grocery stores, which have a very rich history in this area. So it was at the charity event that I worked for, and Daniel and I were just dating at this point, and the artist was live painting throughout the cocktail hour. So you had no idea what it was going to turn into look like. And it ended up being Grizzly Wiggly. And he won it. And it's massive. It takes up an entire wall in my half bath, like huge picture. Yes, it is still in my half bath.
I think it's cool.
It is a conversation piece. I have said it can stay there as long as the walls that are painted right now. Once I decide to redo that bathroom, it's got to go. But yes, so sometimes you may end up with stuff and then you got to own it. Like I just tell the story. I'm like, that's an auction night and that's something we purchased or that he purchased. And
it's what you do.
Supported a good cause.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, wrapping it up, bullseyeing this. Post-auction, pre-auction, just kind of put in your budget. Think about what you're going to spend on the event. Think about what you've already spent with the ticket purchases, things like that. Ladies, if you're buying a ball gown to go to the event, things like that. But evaluate the cause. You will get caught up. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those, have that idea of, I think I want to spend this, but have that cap, because they're going to pull on your heartstrings. They're going to tell you stuff. They're going to probably liquor you up if that's something that you do. Yeah. And so you really need to kind of think about it. And that's why I recommend looking at the live auction catalog ahead of time. Again, there may be some surprise items that they throw in there. There may be some that they're not telling you that they can sell twice. So just be prepared for the different elements that can come with the live auction. But kind of like we've talked about before, if you enjoy concerts and things like that, if you may enjoy live auctions and getting some great opportunities, because these are donors that are donating these things, and it could be a really cool experience. And it's definitely a fun time, but just budget, plan for it, and make sure you're not putting your family in financial ruin where it's like, guys, I bought this Thin Man statue. That's your graduation trip money.
Yeah. So I guess I will recap, because I don't know if we really explicitly came out and said it, but the reasons that someone might sell something at auction basically come down to, they either want to maximize what they can get for whatever the item is that they're selling. That would include anybody that's doing a charitable auction. The things that they're selling, they want to maximize the money that they get for it, because that maximizes their charitable donations. But then the other reason that you might sell something at auction would be for speed and ease of sale. That would be like the tax foreclosure properties. They're just doing that on the front steps of the courthouse because it's quick and it's easy. And most of the time, the buyers there are the banks that have the mortgage on the house anyway. What you will not do, and this was a misperception that I had for a long time, and I'm not sure where I got this, but I had this idea in the back of my head that you could go to an auction. Like, maybe it's because you can do it on eBay. You could go to a live auction and possibly get a bargain on something that was being sold there. At a live auction, that's not going to happen. You might occasionally find a bargain price when you're bidding on something on eBay. But at a live auction, most of my experience has shown that those things are not going to go for cheaper than whatever their actual value is. They may go cheaper than whatever their stated value is, but they're not going to go cheaper than what their actual value is. So go into the auction with the right ideas, which is there a particular item you want to buy? Is there a particular charity you want to support? Or is there a particular whatever that you are trying to accomplish? And whatever you're doing, for whatever reason that you're going to the auction, make sure that you have a budget and stick to it.
Yep. Because that's going to be, when you get that statement after the charity, it's going to show you, everyone thinks that every dollar they spend at a charity auction is going to be a donation, but you've got values and goods and services in there, things like that, that'll have to be deducted out of that. And so I know, like, some people, like, we had to, on our invitations, put, like, the ticket price is X, but we're taking out for goods and services. So this is actually what's going to be the donation part of it. And it'll be the same thing with a live auction, silent auction. They've got the value of the item and then what you paid, essentially. Yeah. So there's a lot of configuring with that as well. So just don't go into it like, oh, I'm going to drop $10,000 and it's all a donation. Yeah. Now, at the end of the night, when you do like the Fund to Cure or Give to Live, or everybody calls it different things, but like that straight 100% donation, that's a different story.
Yeah. Well, going once, going twice,
sold!
Ladies and gentlemen, there's the closing bell. You've made it to the end of yet another episode of the BullCast podcast. If you liked what you heard and you'd like to hear more, please feel free to go to your favorite subscription service and sign up to have our podcast beamed directly to your device every single Thursday at noon. If you'd like to find out more about Cortland, Katie, Cameron, or Nicole, please feel free to go to our website. That website is bullcastpodcast.com. We've got bios up there. We've also got a place where you can leave a comment, suggest a topic, or even suggest a guest you'd like to hear on our podcast. We do have some pictures on there if you like pictures, but if you like pictures, might I suggest that you go to Instagram and check out our Instagram handle. That is at BullCast Podcast. We also have an X handle that is at BullCast Podcast as well. And finally, we have a Facebook page. That is BullCast the Podcast. You can check us out at all of those places. And if you still haven't had enough, ladies and gentlemen, Katie and Cameron and I have all mentioned that we work at a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors. And if you'd like to find out even more about us, find out about what we actually do, what we can do for you, find out about our amazing team and find out about our boss, David Pickler, please feel free to go to that website. That website is picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O.
Not an E.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have given you everything you need to go forth and buy all of the stuff at auction. So for now, I'm Court.
I'm Katie.
I'm Cam.
And we're done.